What is up, podheads? Tony here, back with the Podio Slate podcast, joined by Anthony and a special guest, Sean from Trawl. How you doing, Sean?
What's happening, boys?
Ooh, I like that. We're classing the joint up. We got Sean here, and I'm drinking some wine. I got some red velvet wine, which I've never done on raw recording a podcast.
I've done it before. Famously, Damien did it the first time we had him on, way back on 77, I think. So yeah.
I currently am rocking a severed lime liquid death and a throat coat tea for
just so that you sound good on the pod. I love it, Sean. I love it.
Sound velvety, baby.
You just one upped my my red velvet, my cupcake, red velvet cupcake.
Ooh, you know what though? I do like a good red velvet. So
we're not sponsored by any of these things, so
not yet.
We would love to be sponsored by any or all of these things. I'm drinking a Bissell, local Maine Boys brewery. So yeah, let's get after it, boys. Let's have some fun tonight. Okay, so you just heard the intro, and for, I want to say, probably like 130 or so episodes, we've had the same intro that was created by good friends of ours, Nomar Slevik and Donnie Golden. Well, we sent the intro that they made to Sean and the boys in Trawl and said, can you guys instrumentize this and make it fucking badass? And they certainly did.
Full band, baby. Tell
us how that happened, man.
It was honestly sheer luck, and we you guys sent us that and said, hey, can you guys mess with this a bit? So sat down with Seth, Justin, and Adam, and we started just goofing around. At one point, I think we had like a 5 or 6 minute long version that covered like 4 or 5 different genres, and we tried our best to just kind of do it right. And we had one that went from like a standard version to a really thrash driven version. And, you know, we just decided, let's just do 3 or 4 small, just 30-second slaps so these guys can use it. And I mean, we honestly sat down, played with it a bunch, and then said, screw it, let's friggin' record this now. And we banged it out in a night, you know, had fun with it, and then sent them to you guys, and you guys were like, well, shit. Okay.
Well, the one that you heard is, we're calling it the funk version, right? There's 3 versions. I don't know if we made that clear. There's 3 variations. We're calling one is a standard one. The second's the funk one, which you heard. And the third one is more of like a metal thrash iteration. I don't know if we're going to rotate them or what, but maybe depending on the guest. But the one you just heard is the funk one. We're going to run with that one tonight.
We were calling that one the disco funk because it just had a, you know, actually Adam was saying, I got to put a little more disco drums in that. And we're like, okay. And then you can hear it kind of being a little more, you know, dancey.
It's certainly dancey. I was stoked when I heard him. I was like, this is exactly what I was hoping they would be able to do with it. And really cool to have you guys take something that had, you know, we had made for the podcast forever ago and spruce it up and add some fun to it and put some music behind, you know, real instrumentation behind it, not just a Happy Meals toy, which is the original guitar riff is from an American Idol Happy Meals like keychain guitar thing. So that's on our YouTube page. Go listen to that if you want. It's badass that they turn it into that. So now we have a hip hop version. We have a disco funk version, we have a thrash version, and we have the standard version with instruments. Pretty cool stuff. Pretty proliferation of nerdery right there.
Well, we really wanted to make sure that these were done right. And like, I know, Tone, you and I were texting back and forth, and I had sent you the link to be like, hey, check them out, give us notes. Your like first comment was, I have no fucking notes. Those are great. And then we, as musicians, are stupid, and you can never not continue to play with music when you record it. I mean, that's one thing that sucks, is you'll always find something wrong with what you've done recording wise, and you keep fucking with it and it's like at some point you have to stop, because if you don't, it's just gonna go the other way. Like, you've got it as close to perfect as you want it, and now all of a sudden it's going straight to shit and you're just gonna scrap it all. So we went back in, tinkered with some stuff, had some more fun with it, you know, mixing and mastering wise, and send them back to you guys, and you guys seem happy, so we're happy.
Would you say you played a producer role?
Yes.
Yeah, there you go.
Nice.
Producer credits on that.
Yes, I was heavily in the background, just okay, good, but you can do better. I like what you're doing, but do something different. You know.
At some point, you can add some lyrics and make it a full 3.5-minute song. We'll throw it up on Spotify and everything.
Dude, we had a version that was this, you know, it started out kind of with the standard and then went into the thrash and then moved to the disco funk and then back to the thrash. And like, we had a couple other things we were playing with, and I didn't have like vocal parts for it, but I definitely had ideas to just be like, during the thrash part, just be like, like just freak out and scream throughout it. But I didn't think you guys would want that in your intro because it would sound totally ridiculous.
It might be kind of fun, though. Maybe down the line. We'll revisit.
Put a pin in that. We'll come back to it.
Hey, I'm going to put something in your head here. Whatever version that is, instead of the bass, you have to go bing, 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 bing.
Okay, I can definitely do that. Yeah.
All right, perfect. There you go.
Yeah.
I'll even do like the.
Yes. Perfect. Man, I just love all this stuff because we started this thing 3.5 years ago, and we never saw this, and never saw even having an original song to begin with for the podcast. Like, we started it, we never had music. We just started talking, cracked open the mics, and talked about music. But they were like, we should add some music to this, and then for it to turn into what it is today, I'm just so happy.
Well, I remember that the first one was like, we went from just talking to start and probably freaking mumbling, and then we get the intro, and you're like, my buddies I think can put something together. Then we got that, and then we just keep leveling up here.
Yeah, I mean, we had fun with it, and I'm glad you guys are happy with it. And I genuinely hope that it goes for a long time for y'all with that, because like I said, we had fun with it. We definitely were playing like with the idea of maybe making a song out of it, and like basically making it the Patio Slave song or something like that, and writing some crazy like Soundgarden meets Rage lyrics. But you know, in time we'll figure that out.
Yeah, we can do that down the line. Maybe even have Anthony and I back in to sing back up.
Right.
Do some gang vocals.
Yeah. Hell yeah. We could do that. We love doing it when we did it for Kaiju King for you guys a 1.5 years ago now, which is crazy.
Yeah. We'll do gang vocals in real time, and then have a big breakdown. Dun 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 dun.
Yes, that'd be fucking great.
I drank.
Drink.
Yeah, drink. Sorry, I forgot to say it. Drink. Behind the scenes, we had I put it up on Instagram. We had Frank Zumo on. And he said in real time, and I just
literally look at the camera and you just go drink.
Well, I smirked. I don't remember smirking until you did the video, and I was like, "Oh shit!" I caught it.
Oh yeah. It was a good time. It's always a good time when you hear some of your sayings and stuff like that happen in real time in an interview, and you're like, "Yeah, we got to pay homage."
He's probably like, "What the fuck is going on?"
He was looking at you guys like, "What the fuck was that?"
Yeah. I was muted, fortunately. All right, so we have you here, Sean, tonight.
Yeah.
To talk an album that the three of us absolutely love. And usually we get like 10 minutes into talking about it before we say the name of the album. I'm just going to say it now. Finch's What It Is to Burn. And a record that I think we all collectively have pretty high in our, top albums for, our personal lists. And one that we've spent a ton of time with. It's now 21 and some change years old. And it felt like a good time to dig into this one.
Totally.
Yeah.
Love this record. We've been, like we said with the Glass Jaw episode, we saved the deep dives and the retrospective full episodes on albums for special albums. And for me, it cracks that list. And I'm shocked we waited almost 200 episodes to do it, much like the Glass Jaw Worship and Tribute one. If you like what you hear with this one, go back a few episodes ago. We do the same with Worship and Tribute. I still love this record. I've loved it from the jump. Loved it now. I listen to it. I know all the words. I know the sequence. It brings me back to that era.
Yeah, this is I texted Tony about this. This is literally my number one favorite album of all time.
Unreal.
And that beats out bands like Cold Chamber, which I am a crazy fan of. Life of Agony, which I have a tattoo of their first CD on my body. And as funny enough, Glassjaw is my number 5 favorite album of all time. Worship and Tribute is number 5 on my top 5. So the fact that you guys were able to do that, I loved listening to that episode. It was good to hear 2 woke Ken dolls talk with another person about about an album that I've held so dear to my heart that, I mean, I still have my CD of Worship and Tribute. It's destroyed. You cannot play it. The jewel case is destroyed. It's held together by hopes and dreams and a ton of fond memories. I am probably, honestly, on disc number 5 of What It Is to Burn. Like, I destroyed that album in my cars. I was talking with my wife. We were driving up to a wedding yesterday, and I had mentioned that I was doing an interview about, like, a deep dive about an album, and she didn't really know what I was talking about. And then I said, well, it's this. And she goes, oh, that makes sense. And I was like, well, what do you mean? She goes, anytime we're on a road trip, if it's more than 45 minutes, you have 3 albums you put on, and this is usually number 1. And I went, yep.
Yep, you get me. You know me.
Yeah. So this is deep passion for this album. I'm shocked that you guys waited this long to get into it too, because I know Tony and we were working together when this album came out.
We were. You're right.
And I'm pretty sure we both had it playing in our cars, or, well, in your car and at the friggin' shoe store, constantly.
Yeah, you're absolutely right. And let's start there. Early memories of it before it came out, like what we were expecting, that kind of lead up to the record dropping in March of 2002. It was March 2002. I remember, I think, Anthony, you got me into this band via I don't know if it was a burned copy of the EP that came out before. So what was the name of that? Falling Into Place?
Falling Into Place. Yeah.
Yeah. And hearing Letters to You. I remember hearing Letters to You and being like, okay, I'm in on this band. I don't know what else is coming from them, but I can't wait for it. I'm ready to just spin the hell out of whatever comes next. And I mean, it was a time when I probably was starting to lean more into a little heavier stuff. And this was, Thrice and Finch and The Used, and in that world, stuff was kind of hitting me a little more than it had when I was a little younger. And I have you to thank for that, Anthony, because I don't know that I would have listened to a ton of this stuff without maybe you or Nate a little bit before too. But mostly this world was definitely just riding around in your car when we were 16, 17 years old.
Doesn't surprise me. That story checks out. For me, I'm going to be that guy. I was hot to trot with Finch early. So Warped Tour 01. I got a CD sampler. I have it right here. It's called the After Stool Special.
Wow.
The After Stool Special. So this was August 01. It had Non-Point, and it had H2O, and it had Newfound Glory. But it had this band Finch. And here's the crazy thing. The song was Awake, which ended up on the full length. And here's the weird thing. This was before Falling Into Place even dropped. So this Awake was recorded before Falling Into Place came out. And there's, a little blurb here from the forthcoming album, available summer 01. So I wonder what that was. Maybe Awake was supposed to be on the EP, and that's what this is referring to, forthcoming album. But if they're talking about What It Is to Burn, it didn't come out for another year.
Right. Yeah. I mean, if that's August of 01, you're like, what, 9 months later? But the EP came out, what, late 01, right?
October 01.
Yeah. So maybe it was a misprint, or that was supposed to find its way onto Falling Into Place.
Here's the irony. I think it's the worst song. We'll get there, but I think it's the worst song on the album, which is saying a lot. But all right, we'll park that then. We'll get into that.
Yeah, because I know the album, like, they were recording from like May to August or June to September, something like that, for What It Is to Burn of 2001. And for me, like, at this time I was in a punk band with a coworker of Tony's and mine. We were in a punk band called Brick to Face, and we listened to
Love it.
all kinds of fucking like post-hardcore and emo. Like the big things for us were like Thursday, The Used, From Autumn to Ashes, Poison the Well, Glassjaw. I mean, just that whole era. And he came up to me one day and was like, "Hey, I got this new album," because I didn't hear it until 2002 when it released. And we were sitting there, and all of a sudden he hands me this disc. It was a burned copy of What It Is to Burn. And I went, "What the fuck is this?" And I listened to the whole album straight through, even the friggin' like 15-minute long Ender. You know, like I was like, what's going on? Like, what is this fucking chaos that's bombarding my senses? And I want to listen to it again. And I just remember like hearing, because he even skipped, he did the bullshit thing and went to like one of the first singles, which I think was it Letters to You?
It was one of the singles, Letters to You.
Yeah, I'm pretty sure that was like the first one. So he jumped to like the singles and was like hitting me with those. And I'm like, oh, okay. These are really cool. And then he gave me the disc. I went home. I had a CD player with anti-skip, and I had to skateboard back home. So I put it in my backpack. I started skating, and that's all I listened to for my whole like travel home. And I was like, what the fuck? This is so good. I was like, I can't wait to dive into this band more. And it just turned into almost an obsession for like most of my life. Like I love Finch. They're one of my favorite bands. Yeah.
Yeah. Our sentiments are very similar. I remember it dropping. So it would have been March of junior year, right? We were juniors in high school. Sean, we knew each other because of the shoe store and the pasta place that was adjacent to it.
Yep.
And the CYY, our local radio station, was playing. They were playing Stay With Me, maybe? Did they play Stay With Me later in the year?
I think they played What It Is to Burn. I think
that was to Burn. Yeah.
Because What It Is to Burn, I'm pretty sure charted like pretty friggin' high on the Billboard charts.
Mm-hmm.
And that was like, I remember CYY was like, oh, it's this song from Finch. And then I just remember the friggin', the radio edit was different than what was on the album at the time.
Big time. Yeah.
So it was like, wait, that's not the whole song. You're missing just a huge portion of that song. You're really fucking this up, guys.
Yeah, you're right. That was that was the first single, and it was out in January of 2002, and then the record dropped 2 months later. I had a CD player with anti-skip too. I don't know. It wasn't a Discman. I wasn't cool enough to have a Discman, but I remember being in class, and I was a good student, so like I could get away with shit like this, and just having my headphones in for like 3 weeks straight with this record.
With this record, yeah.
Yeah, I would just sit in history class, and I mean the history that I was joking with my wife about this the other day. History, the answers don't change. It's history, so I would be like, yeah, I don't need to pay too much attention here. This is all the same, and I would just be listening to What It Is to Burn on repeat. Like, couldn't take it out of my CD player. It finally came out in May when Eminem dropped the Eminem Show, and I did the same thing with that for about 3 weeks at school. But this one was always around that time, and it was in the car. I would come out of my CD player in my backpack, go into the car, into my CD player in my car, which, if you remember, Sean, Adam, who you took over for at the shoe store, this is super inside for Sean and I. He put my CD player in for me for $20. So shout out to Adam, wherever he is.
He's in the
Great
world.
investment.
Probably,
Great investment.
Yeah. Best investment, $20, and you get to play Finch at full tilt, man.
Full tilt in that 1994 Nissan Sentra 5-speed that I still miss. The Blue Hornet, baby.
So I was thinking about that time period, and it was an interesting time period because pop punk was definitely massive. From like 2000 to 2003, you had NFG, you had Blink, you had Good Charlotte. That was taken off. And then a little bit of heaviness started to creep into really the Warped Tour world. I mean, that's really what it was. And in the case of Finch, they were on Drive Thru, which I was a Drive Thru kid. Any band that they signed, I was checking out. But none of the bands sounded like Finch. You had NFG, you had Phoenix TX, you had the Starting Line, you had the Movie Life with a little bit of an edge, early November in that time frame. So when Finch comes and Census Fail, that was, I think, I didn't read up on this, maybe I'm wrong, but I feel like that was Drive Thru's answer to what was going on. Because I looked at their roster, that was kind of it for the heavy stuff, was Finch, in Census Fail.
Yeah, I mean, that time frame, that early 2000s, pop punk was king. End of
King.
story.
Yeah.
Full stop. You could not go. MTV played pop punk stuff nonstop. You turn it on, and there's Good Charlotte. Here comes Blink 182. Here comes all these bands they're pop punk. The sound. Homegrown is a band that I still listen to, and
Drive Through represent.
They were so goofy, and I think that's what really got it. The early 2000s, that goofiness was just rampant, and it was king. But then bands like Census Fail, Glassjaw, Finch, Thursday coming out in that era, like there was this edge that was coming, and that post-hardcore movement was just boiling up, because punk is great. Pop punk is even better because it can be commercially sold, but we need something that has a little more bite to it, and you can't go full nu metal because that's already kind of coming down. Like the trajectory of that was already kind of sloping hard, south. So they wanted something that was still kind of marketable, but, and this is all my opinion, I don't fucking know for the, truth, but I feel like this was marketable, but it had that little extra, like, little dash of sriracha on top, that this is the bite.
Yeah.
This is what's going to hook people, is these guys can sing, but check out this heavy shit, and it's going to get the kids involved, and the kids that want to, dance their brains out and crowd surf, they're the ones who are going to buy the shirts, the hats, the basketball jerseys, the backpacks, like all the merch. Like, let's put this stuff out. And I think, the early 2000s, that post-hardcore scene just started to bubble up, and it was a torrent, man. It was like the music from that era, the post-hardcore genre. I still listen to 99% of it today. It's just so good. It's so well produced, so well written. And honestly, I don't think unfortunately, I don't think that genre is going to come back like that again for a while, because it just was so strong. And I think a lot of people, typical record labels, I feel like they all jumped on it, poured as much as they could, and typical like nu metal fashion, they put too much into it, and the pyramid collapsed. And bands like Finch, they were, in my opinion, probably one of the front runners of that. Even though you still look them up on Spotify, they're in the emo category, which is fucking weird. Like, emo has more whining in the vocals, more nasally stuff, where Nate's fucking vocals were, I mean, his voice is so good. I don't know. And I think that's what happened, is they got caught up in the Royal, their second album we'll get to later on. But I still ride for the second album, because I think it's just as good as this one, but it did not get the love because it came into that like collapse of post-hardcore.
Well, we mentioned this in the Glassjaw episode, a handful of episodes back, where you're right, nu metal had kind of started to nosedive, and this genre of music had this really quick up and really quick back down. And part of it was because the money in the industry went away, and part of it was because you had the bands show up, the Strokes and the Hives and stuff like that kind of took over. That was a little more palatable for the masses, where this like 2000 to 2004 range of records is so fucking good. Had it had another 4 or 5, 6 years, we would have gotten double the output maybe, but we would have gotten a lot of not as good stuff because of it too. So like anything, it had its moment. I just wish its moment had been a little longer. I think we all probably agree with that.
Totally. And the thing is like this album, this was when MCA was involved with Drive Through. So this was a band that got upstreamed through their channel. And like we spoke with Brian McTernan and Vinnie Caruana on the deep dive of the Movie Life record a few weeks ago, I don't think these bands going up to a major was good really for anyone, because I don't think, from the label's perspective, I don't think the sales were there. From the band's perspective, they're still trying to figure out their sound. Then you throw in a manager, you throw in label pressure, you throw in first week projections, and then the fans, the poor fans, we get lost in it. I'm not going to say anything about Say Hello to Sunshine. I'm going to take that right out of it. But a lot of the bands of this ilk that went this direction, that second release or the first release on a major, a lot of them lost the essence of why they got popular in the first place. I'm not going to say names. There's still some good stuff on some of these albums, but
oh yeah,
they just lost the flair that got them there, and it was tough to watch. And I think a lot of these bands are coming back. I'm not talking about Finch in this statement. I do enjoy Say Hello to Sunshine.
Yeah,
but it was an interesting time, and there should be, I'm sure there is, documentaries on that whole kind of rise and fall.
Oh yeah. My thought with this is seeing that early 2000s like ramp up of the post-hardcore scene. I want to say, like, I never had the EP. I wish I did, because that, I've heard Falling Into Place was stunning, like was definitely something that caught somebody's ear. But my thought is too, like, some of these bands, they formed not too long before.
I was just going to say that, Sean. Yeah, go ahead. Yeah.
This ramp up, like, if I remember correctly, I think Finch was like 98 or 99 when they got together, and 3 years later, they're on a fairly major label, blowing up the scene with this fucking album. And I feel like they didn't necessarily get the time to really fashion their teeth. It kind of was like, you guys are the new thing. Here's money, here's fame, fortune, and, tours. And these guys were like, oh shit, like, okay, hold on. Like, they kind of stuttered for a second, like, what the fuck? And they threw this album together. And I mean, the producer, his name's
Mark Trombino.
Mark,
yes. He produced this album so fucking beautifully. Like, honestly, if I could say thank you to him, I totally would, because this album is, like I said, it's 21 years old. It's literally my favorite album of all time. And I just feel like these guys didn't necessarily get the footing that they needed to get that time to build to, okay, we can tour, we can be comfortable. Because, I mean, I'm pretty sure they were fucking baby-faced, and they were like, here's a record label. We need, 15 songs immediately. So let's go. Burn and Turn, let's get these out. And they were like, well, here's our EP. Shit.
Yeah, we just got together, and here's our EP, and sure, we'll burn through and give you another 9 or 10 songs, and a couple of them on the EP are going to make it to the record. And we're pretty new at this, so Kid Gloves, please. And then it blows up, and they're like, do it again, because we just chew you up and spit you out, right? Hit it and quit it. Like, let's get as much out of you as we can. We don't care about you as a band. Keep making what you're making. That's awesome. And
right,
that pressure for a band that young, that new together, that's why so many of them had trouble.
No, it absolutely. I'm glad you brought that up, because that is a common theme, I think, with a lot of bands from this era with this sound. And like I think they called it quits in like 06. I know they've been off and on, but I think the first time they called it quits was 06. But another thing that we didn't mention is about their rise. They were on like Conan O'Brien. Like they were at the top. You know what I mean? Like What It Is to Burn was everywhere. Absolutely everywhere.
Mm-hmm. Yep. I need to shout out that Conan, Late Night with Conan O'Brien, had so many fucking amazing musical guests. And friend of the pod, former guest, Holiday Kirk of Crazy Ass Moments in Nu Metal fame, posts stuff all the time from the nu metal genre of bands playing Conan, and it blows my mind. This is a tangent, I know, but blows my mind how much cool shit went through the Conan sphere, and I would love to talk to Conan about that someday.
Dude, honestly, I think one of my favorite videos to watch when I'm just feeling, goofy, is to watch the Slipknot performance on Conan, because he was just like, their new album Iowa, and I'm like, oh Jesus.
Here we go.
And then you just watch these fucking maniacs go crazy, and it's like, that's so fucking awesome. And Conan just kind of, I'm sure he just sat down at his desk, he's going, oh, what the fuck did I get myself into? But I mean, he put on some really cool shit that was like, all right, man, you've got my respect for all the crazy shit you've put on here, music wise.
It was great for Late Night. It was great for, that time frame of music was awesome. So again, total tangent, but you're right. Finch was part of that. And it was amazing to have that be everywhere for them, I'm sure, in the moment, but at the same time, it gets really difficult because you're asked to do it over and over and over again.
And I think we bring that up to say that we wish we got more out of them. I mean, I do. I wish. I mean, there's three full lengths in an EP.
Yes.
All have great stuff on them. The EP, it is interesting. The EP, Falling Into Place, it has Perfection Through Silence. It's got Letters to You. Then it's got Waiting and The New Kid. And both Waiting and New Kid are on the softer side, if I remember. New Kid for sure. I remember.
Yep.
Some people gave like Deftones comparisons in that era. I think once What It Is to Burn came out, I think they kind of lost that kind of Deftones comparison, and it was more in the Glassjaw ilk. I think Drive Through was surprisingly a good label for them because it brought in the pop punk kid that they had even a little appetite for some edge. This was digestible, but I think the being on Drive Through did help them because it opened more doors. Like I saw them in this era open for Newfound Glory, Something Corporate, and Further Seems Forever. I mean, 3 of those 4 bands were on Drive Through.
I think that's a good tour for them too, because like you said, they with Drive Through, they had that ability to be a little bit more digestible for people who were not necessarily into the heavier stuff, right? They, Drive Through
all day long. Yep.
Newfound Glory. I mean, they got some screams. Totally okay with it. Sounds great. I love Newfound Glory, but it's not Finch. Finch had this totally different level of, here's your poppy section, like Letters to You. It just starts out very, it's sellable. It's marketable. And then Stay With Me. I mean, come on. That song, I know we'll get into this a little bit later about the tracks and whatnot, but it was Drive Through was a great opportunity for them to get kind of out there and on these tours that were like, it's not like, all right, we're a death metal band, so we have to play with X, Y, and Z. And then you go play with, it's not like Black Dahlia being on the same tour as fucking Queens of the Stone Age. It doesn't work.
Totally.
It would be fun as hell to see, but
I'd go. I'd be front row. I mean,
I'd be happy as hell, man. But having bands that are like, all right, well, we're Finch, here's Stay With Me, and they're like, okay, and it kind of ramp up postscript stuff like that. They can start. Kids are getting into it. They're opening these shows and they're getting the kids into the set. They're excited. They're energized. They go out, they buy the fucking merch, and they come back into the next band. They're kind of already tired, and I think that was really good for them because they got fans from these tours that were not typical. Like it's the same 4 bands. I love seeing those tours that are like, this makes sense. These guys going together. All right. I like seeing the bands that are like, okay, it's Finch, Newfound Glory. There's stuff that touches there, connectivity wise.
Absolutely.
But come on, that's a fucking killer friggin' tour for both bands. Cause I'm sure Newfound Glory is standing out back going, look at these fucking kids. These fucking kids are tearing it up. Well, now we got to step up our game. Like that's how I always do my performances. I'll watch the other bands. Even if I'm opening, I'll do my damnedest to make sure the other bands go, fuck. Hey guys, these nobodies they just showed us up. So we got more spin kicks. Let's go.
Yeah. And it's a good point about them being able to play different bills, because we've heard a ton of musicians on this podcast tell us personally that we can go with this tour and play the softer set, or we can go on this tour and play the heavier set, and we fit in all these worlds. And I don't know that it was necessarily top of mind for bands back then, but Finch would have been a band that it absolutely worked out for. Like you could play the softer set with maybe The New Kid and Letters to You and Stay With Me, and then you can get into it heavy with Grey Matter and Project Mayhem with the Daryl stuff, and just kind of go fucking balls out and be the heavier band on the bill that night. So not a lot of bands were probably thinking a ton about that. Maybe save for, we've talked to a bunch of hardcore bands too that can kind of live in that world, but in the post-hardcore scene and the pop punk and the mainstream rock scene, bands weren't thinking that. It was like, go out with like bands, get new fans. And this was like, let's go out with bands that we'll pull more people in this way because we're supposed to tour with Newfound Glory, or they were going to tour with the Starting Line and the Movie Life, but didn't because of September 11th. But stuff like that.
I get a funny story about Finch. So the first time I was ever going to see them, I'd never seen them live. And the first time, it was probably 2005, 2006, like towards the end of the first, run they had. They were playing, I'm pretty sure they were the headliner at the station in Portland.
Yep. So they did come there. Yep.
Yep. So I was there, and I was there with my sister, a friend of hers, and my wife, and we were all hanging out, and there were some douchebags crowd killing little girls in the pit. And honestly, I'm not one that likes that bullshit. You should never hurt people when you're at a show unless they are hurting somebody else, and then you just let the crowd take care of it. But anyway, getting back to it. So we're there, we're watching the bands, and I watch this asshole just start wailing on these little, like, 80-pound fucking girls. So I'm about to go deal with him. Then all of a sudden I look, and there's my wife on the fucking guy. So I went, well, this is fucking happening. So I come from fucking West Texas with a right hook, and I got about 4 inches from the guy's face, and all of a sudden my fist stopped dead. And I was like, what the fuck? And I turn and look, and there was 5 security guards on me immediately, because they just saw me come from the other side of the station. And you guys have been to the station, you know how. So I was going towards the stage, so it was a bit the longer part. I came from like the back bar, full fucking tilt, ready to kill this motherfucker. And I had 5 or 6 security guards drag me out of there. Fucking, like, they lifted me up and carried me up the fucking stairs and like threw me off. Oh, no. So I'm out there mouthing off to, the fucking security guards. And sure as shit, here comes Nate, singer of Finch. And he's just looking at me like, what the fuck? And I'm like, hey man, big fan. And he goes in, and that was it. I didn't get to see him because I got kicked out. No. I sat in my car because I had to wait for my sister and her friend. My wife came out, and I sat there, and all I heard was woo, 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 like the sound coming through the walls. And I was like, man, this is like the one time I'm ever going to see this band, aren't I? They're going to break up. And sure as shit, it was like a month or 2 later, they were like, yeah, we're done. I was like, oh,
damn,
fuck
dude.
Me.
And you're just trying to help them out. I get it. And we're not going to get into the is crowd killing good or bad debate. That happens all the time on the internet. We're saving that for another day.
Save that for the internet to figure out.
Exactly.
Yeah. But I did get to see them, actually. Years later, after the 30 album, I got to see them at the State Theater with Yellow Card. Mm-hmm. And I'm not even joking. There was like maybe 100 people there. It was such a small, like, the State Theater is good size, and I've never been to a show where you walk in and there's nobody sitting down. The 3 layers of, tiers, there's nobody in the 3rd tier. It's the 1st and 2nd tier, and that's it. And I was like, well, fuck it. I get to see an intimate performance with Finch and Goldfinger, and Finch put on one of the most fucking electric performances I've ever seen in my life.
Damn.
So.
Yeah, I have the dates for both of those shows right now, actually. The station one was November 15th, 05, according to setlist.fm, and then the State Theater one was April 20th of 2015, which I didn't even know happened. I would have gone to that show.
Wow, 2015.
Yeah, I would have gone to that show.
Yeah, so 2015, yeah, that makes sense, because I know that the November show of 05 was just a few months after my wife had given birth to our first child, and what I saw was death. Because this guy was touching the mother of my child, and I was like, I'm going to murder a motherfucker tonight.
Jesus. I'm glad you didn't, Sean, because we wouldn't be here talking today.
And I'm glad you got to see him, too.
Security guards fucking muckle me down. But then seeing him in 2015, like, they still had it, man. It was unbelievable. Yeah. I don't know what to say.
Let's talk observations, because I'm sure all 3 of us, not only have we lived with it for 20 years, we probably listened to it a lot in prep for this episode. For me, it's one of those records that never left my rotation ever. If you listen to this podcast, I say that there's maybe 20 or 30 records that never left my rotation. This is definitely one of them. So let's give some observations. Tone, what stands out for you?
I love the intro. to the first song, the intro to the album,
All time.
New Beginnings,
intro.
that just like kind of slow build into the thwack on the drum, and then you're like, oh shit, and then it just goes. And I love that. It's a great tone setter for what you're about to get. Just this kind of ethereal build in the background to bam, here's New Beginnings, and you're into it. I love the poppiness of Letters to You and Stay With Me. At first, I didn't think I did. And as time has passed, I mean, not even that long after I started living with the record, I was like, no, those are perfect. They should be there. They allow them to play in a different world. It's a record for me that I've come back to a ton too, and I don't typically do that maybe as much as you, Anthony, where you've got one that kind of sticks in your rotation, or you too, Sean. But for me, I'm like a total feel when it comes to music. Like, what am I feeling right this second? And if they've been something that's been in my wheelhouse for the last 2 weeks or something's popped up, I'll put it on. And this is one that I definitely, it hits me more in my, like, I'm gonna put this one on than some other records that we've talked about over the years, because of how much time I spent with it when it first came out. And I think Marshall Gallagher of Teenage Risk said it to us: when a record's still sticking around, a month later, 2 months later, 6 months later, that's when you get something. Like, stuff comes out, you listen to it, and then it goes away because new stuff comes out and it fills the spot. And for us, we're constantly trying to find that thing that like scratches those itches. This was one that did for me a ton back then and still does today, 21 years later. So those are some of the observations for me.
Stay With Me, fucking drive in your car, windows down, summer night, screaming it as loud as you fucking can. I've probably done that a million times.
Totally.
A million.
Yeah, Stay With Me is definitely one of those bangers that you like you said, you're on the road, it's late, you got the headlights and that's it. You turn that song on, I will blow my vocal cords out singing that fucking song every single time.
Absolutely.
It is so fucking good, especially like you said, late night, man. That is definitely a cruising song. Project Mayhem is not a driving song.
Unless you want to get in a car accident, and bumper cars maybe.
Yeah, that, or you just want to fucking, myrtlate people with the front of your fucking vehicle. No, I mean, Stay With Me is just a banger. I'll be honest, I think What It Is to Burn is the perfect album closer, period. It puts an exclamation point instead of a period. It finalized the album so fucking succinctly that I always forget that that's the last track, because New Beginnings comes on and that friggin' ethereal, like phasered fucking guitar intro. It's like, oh wait, they got another song. And then it's like, no, that's the beginning of the album. And I get lost all the time in what track I'm in, just because I zone out and I'm just there in the moment. And what I really like about this album is the fact that it almost feels, once you've gone through the lyrics and you look at the songs, it feels like it's like a concept album, Everything kind of ties into a different song. Like Gray Matter mentions She Burns, and Project Mayhem, She Burns, and there's these friggin' bouncing from, Postscript can be found in Awake, and Without You Here can be found in New Beginning. Like, there's things in every song that bounce to a different song. And if you're paying attention, like, you can see this is like a concept album. And what I was saying to you, Tone, in some of our text messages, the fact that I feel like this album, from 1 to 13, it's literally, if you can kind of almost get in a different headspace and you listen to the lyrics, you listen to the music, it feels like it's a relationship between a guy and a girl. The whole album is one relationship where, she fucks up, he fucks up, they both get into drugs, he gets out of drugs, she gets out. It's like this crazy ass long relationship through 13 songs that I didn't realize until like probably, 2012, when I actually sat down in a different headspace mentally and emotionally. Like, this album is so fucking tightly wound from the first note to the very last friggin' second of the album.
What do you think of the dancey part in Project Mayhem? Little techno beat there in the middle of it.
That absolutely 100% had to be Daryl Palumbo, man.
Had to have been, right? Yeah.
Had to be. That, I love Daryl. I love Glassjaw. I'm a huge fan of Head Automatica. That had to be him. Him coming into the, I mean, Gray Matter and Project Mayhem, I feel like are the two heaviest fucking songs on the album without a doubt.
By
Like
far.
lyrically and musically, I think they just destroy. And it had to be him because he had to have this. Hey guys, I got this fun little beat. Let's throw this in here because it turns into like this techno fucking disco. All of a sudden, you're like, yeah, all right. You're kind of shaking your head in the car, bouncing back and forth. It's fucking great. I love it.
Yeah, it's a left turn that I didn't see coming. Even listening back to it, I was like, kind of forgot about this part.
Yeah. Well, and those two songs, I'm not sure they necessarily fit on the record, but they do at the same time, because especially if you look at it in the way Sean just explained it, where it's this relationship.
Totally.
Every relationship has these two songs happen, right? Like a point where I'm not sure if we're gonna get through this. This is turbulent, and those two songs absolutely live that and feel that way, especially in the context of the album itself. And how about having a song called Ender, which feels like a closing track and does the whole closing track kind of extended music piano thing at the end, and it's not the last song.
Dude,
Because of how good What It Is to Burn is.
It is fucking like 14 minutes long, but the actual song part's only like, what, 3.5, maybe 4 at most. And they've got like this 9-10 minute long piano, like basically it's what you would expect to have. And then like a secret song that's not a track listed. Like that's what I anticipated for that. And it's like, nope, that didn't end it. Now we're going to, we're going to see What It Is to Burn right here. I was like, what the fuck, man? Like I'll be honest, I don't always skip that friggin' long ass outro part to Ender because I don't know, it just kind of can put me in the right headspace. It kind of gets me physically and emotionally ready for, I know that, friggin' like when it kicks into What It Is to Burn, I know if I listen to Ender, I can be ready for it.
I'd argue that Ender is the end of the record, and then What It Is to Burn is just, hey, all of that stuff that you just listened to, here's the cap for it. Like, this is all of that in one.
That is a good way to look at it. And what's interesting is I have the CD here. Whenever we talk about these records, I always pull out the CD just to see if I can, glean anything from the liner notes or whatever. But it says bonus track for What It Is to Burn at the end.
Right.
So it kind of fits that. And you mentioned, Sean, the radio version was much different. It absolutely was. The original version of What It Is to Burn, I think, was leaps and bounds better than the radio version. Nate's screaming, and we talked about this. We had the Last Track Magic episode. What It Is to Burn is Last Track Magic. It's a phenomenal song, great end cap. But the original version, I think, I don't even know where you can find it because I know it's on YouTube. And if you have the original CD, I think the original pressing of the CD has the original version. But what's on Spotify is the radio. And
right.
Nate's scream when he comes in, the original version is better, I gotta say.
Oh, 100% agree.
I'm a original version truther here.
I will be on that boat with you, my brother, because honestly, the radio edit, like we said earlier, totally fine to get that digestible, this is heavy, but not really heavy. Like you might not be into this kind of style of music, but now you can be because, this guy, look at this attractive young man who can sing, and now listen to him fucking scream. And it's a very pretty song lyrically too. So although I did for the longest time, I did not know it was Like a Bad Star. I always thought it was like a barnstorm or a bad storm.
I thought Bad Storm for a long time too. Yeah. And until I recently tweeted the lyrics out, which you, I think, also liked and reposted, yes. Sean.
I commented the other part of the lyrics to that.
Yeah. My wife Jess and I were sitting watching YouTube, and sometimes you toss a video on from 2001 and it will give you more 2001 stuff, which is always kind of nice. And this video popped up and I was like, oh, I can't wait for this, to talk about this record, because we've been planning on doing it for a while, but such a fucking great end to the record, and Last Track Magic all fucking day.
When you told me, like, you texted me and said, hey, what are you doing Sunday? And I was like, nothing. He goes, do you want to talk Finch? And I was like, oh, this was like, what, Monday, Tuesday?
Clear your calendar, baby.
Yep.
No joke. I have done nothing but listen to What It Is to Burn from the moment he texted me and I said, I am now free on Sunday night, to literally about half hour before we got on this call. That's all I've listened to. Nothing else, no podcasts, no other albums.
I love it.
Just this.
Oh, go back and listen to the Audio Slave if you missed last week's episode. It was really good.
Oh, I've got that. That was on Monday.
Okay.
So
Okay.
Tuesday, I was that. We're good.
2 quick observations. Love a repeated feature. Daryl's on twice. I was trying to think of other albums where that happens. I couldn't think of any off the top of my head. He fits those. He smokes those tracks. They're perfect. Daryl, he's in his bag. Other observation is they re-recorded Letters to You and Perfection Through Silence. I remember when this record came out, I was like, oh man, they polished those songs too much. They lost the essence of the EP. In prep for this, I listened back to the EP versions and they sound like demos. The EP versions of those songs sound like demos. Like I think they captured the essence of the song great and polished them for the better. Like the instruments on the EP, again, a lot of it has to do with production budget and all that and whatnot. So it's not a slight. It's just I prefer the full length versions. They kill it. They smoke it.
I totally agree, and love the 2 features, Daryl features on the record, and having a record where you have that happen. That doesn't happen a lot. You're right. It's typically one and done, and those features got me into Glassjaw. Like, I didn't know about Glassjaw before that, and then Worship and Tribute came out later that year, and we did a whole deep dive on it in 5 or 6 episodes back. Go check it out. But it's why I ended up taking notice to Glassjaw. So thank you, Finch, for introducing me to new music.
I was already into Glassjaw, and I think that was something that got me more excited when I saw this album, like, actually had the real disc in my hands, was going, oh, Daryl Palumbo's on here. Oh, he's on here twice. And then hearing Gray Matter and Project Mayhem, those songs are so fucking in his wheelhouse.
They're perfect for him.
It's fucking great. It's so good to hear. And especially like you said, I can't think of very many double features. Like, I'm trying to find something and I got nothing off the top of my head. And I think that was something that really helped sell Finch to the harder audience was, hey, we got this, Glassjaw, Daryl Palumbo, y'all know him.
Glassjaw cosign. Yep.
If you guys can think out there listening, can think of something, a record with a feature on 2 separate songs or more on an album, hit us up at Audio Slave on all the social medias, and then audioslavepodcasts@gmail.com, because we would like to check those out if we don't know about them.
Oh, one other observation, the artwork. I love the artwork. It's definitely of the time. You can tell it's definitely Glassjaw inspired. I've always thought they took inspiration there. I'm just guessing that they were influenced by Glassjaw with the imagery, and it's great imagery. Like, I looking at it right now, and it's iconic. I can't picture any other artwork for this album. It doesn't fit it, yet fits it perfectly. I don't even know how that makes sense. It's just amazing.
Completely agree. A lot of the records from that time have artwork that doesn't fit it, but fits it perfectly. And this is one of those. This is a Hall of Fame entry of that.
Yeah, I've seen the 20th anniversary cover. I don't like it. I love the album. I don't like it. It's just white with the Finch logo, and it just didn't.
I know what you're talking about. Yeah.
Yeah, it didn't feel right. When I saw it, I was gonna buy it, and then I was like, I didn't know. It doesn't feel right. I want those ice cubes. I want that tray. I want to sit down, put the disc in front of my friggin' TV when I put it into my Xbox to play it, and there it is. Like, the ice cube tray is right there.
And the baby in the fetal position.
Yeah.
From the ice cube tray to the Xbox tray. I love it, Sean. That's great.
I don't have a CD player anymore. I got one in my car.
Really? Yeah.
I used to have one, but then we ended up getting a bearded dragon, and he kind of took over the spot that used to live. So, and actually, I think the last disc that was played in it was Finch.
Good. That makes sense.
It was either Finch or the Transplants.
That's a good one too. Yeah. That's a good one.
And maybe we'll deep dive them in a few.
I don't know if that one's happening anytime soon, but I love that. I mean, we have Sean on for it, and his CD player's last will and testament was playing Finch Is What It Is to Burn. So you were the right guest for this, Sean.
Oh yeah, well I appreciate it. Though I mean, again, that this album is literally my favorite album of all time. I've probably got easily over, I don't know, 5,000 plays of the album. I mean, probably just, a few hundred this week alone, just nonstop with headphones while I'm at work, when I'm driving for work. It's in my headspace. And I can't think of a better album, in my opinion, than what it is to Burn.
It's way up there. It's aged. It could be better than it's ever been, because now we have the lens of every other band that tried to do it and failed, or didn't even come close. No skips, front to back. I actually don't skip any. I said I Awake is probably my least favorite. That doesn't mean I skip it. Doesn't mean it's not a great song. Brilliant song. This is all-time album, and I hope that's the message that everyone gets when they listen to this. We only have an hour really to talk about it. We could talk about it for several hours, I'm sure.
Yeah, we could go all night, boys.
No one would click on it if it said 3 hours, though. I don't think, unfortunately. So
fucking all-time album.
I would agree. All-time album for me. Record that I come back to more than most of the music that I grew up with, and music that I listen to even to this day. It's in there. It's got to be a top 20 for me for sure.
I ride hard for Say Hello to Sunshine. I really do. I think they did a great job. And that was 2004, maybe it came out?
05, June 05. I think it was recorded 04.
Okay. So even still, 2 years later to come out with another full length, I genuinely think that it's not got as many plays as this album does, but it's pretty close because, Bite Marks and Bloodstains, it's a banging track. Was it The Casket of Rodney Harrington or something like that?
Roderick Usher. That's
Roderick
pretty close.
Usher, near the end. Well, Sean, the thing is, if you were a drive-through kid, this would be different. This was more chaotic, crazy time signatures. Maybe had some breakdowns in there. Like it was a departure if you came from the pop punk side of Finch.
See, and I at this time frame, I was not so much a pop punk kid. Like I consider myself more of a punker because I like a lot more of that style, and I feel maybe more towards the hardcore and post-hardcore stuff because I listen to Thursday still, Senses Fail, From Autumn to Ashes I had on like 2 weeks ago, and I think that one was like, okay, they're getting a little more edgy, they're getting a little more teeth in their friggin' music, and then unfortunately, whatever happened, they split up and took a break, and it was only for like a year or two. They came back. I feel like they came back just as strong, and they went for 5-6 more years, and then that second break was like they're not coming back. Like it felt almost like a hollowness in my heart for that because I was like, these guys are so good, and I don't know why they're not working together because they seem like they're having fun, and I'm sure there's internal stuff. Every band has that stuff, and I've seen interviews where certain members will say, well, this person's got a family now, or this person has a different project, and that's fine. I think the Oblivion album, the third album, I think that's actually a way more mature version of Finch, and I feel like if there was other albums in between it, we wouldn't have gotten that third album, because that third album, like vocally, Nate's fucking more money than he's been on the other two albums, because I feel like he matured and was able to write lyrics more easily. Like they came to him, whereas some of the stuff in the first album, like it's like I feel like he may have tried to push it a little harder and not necessarily got in there right the way he wanted it to come out, but
Well, he's older too, right? I mean, he's older, he's experienced more, and that would make sense. I've admittedly spent the least time with Back to Oblivion. I've maybe listened to it a handful of times, but if you're giving it the cosign, I will revisit it.
Yes, I will 100% cosign that. I feel like if you sit back and like if you go 1, 2, 3, What It Is, Sunshine, Oblivion, you'll feel the first album is, here's the firecracker, bang, here we are on the scene making noise. The second album is, okay, we've got more teeth, we've got more bite, there's more breakdowns, there's more heaviness, there's Pappas's drums are a little more fucking crazy, and but then go to that third album, Oblivion, and it almost feels like they took the time away to say, okay, I need to mature musically, emotionally, mentally. I need to deal with some shit. And then getting into that third album, I honestly feel like if they continued going on that path, I think they could get 3 or 4 more albums. It's kind of like Thrice, from Artist Ambulance. Such a great fucking album. His voice, he fried it. And, the most recent Thrice albums are so good because I feel like he matured. He became more comfortable in his being. And honestly, I think Back to Oblivion really shows all of the band members really finding a maturity. And I don't think it's all original. I think maybe the bass players knew, but they all have this maturity throughout that album that's really fucking fun to listen to if you've, got the time.
No shit, Twan. No shit, Sean. You're right. The bass player is new. Everybody else is. Pappas is back. He came back in, it looks like 2013 and stayed. And then the rest are all back too, which is wild.
Yep.
So you nailed that.
Dude, I told you, this is my band. One of them, I would love to get the Finch logo tattooed on me. I just don't know where. And honestly, this album, What It Is to Burn, I think has got some of the more fun guitar tones, like Randy and Grizz. Their guitar tones are fun throughout the album. Like the stuff they do, the intro to the album, get into Project Mayhem. It's almost like you guys talking about Stuck Pig, where it starts out a little chaotic and you don't know what the fuck's going to happen.
Oh, yeah.
But then there's this fucking vocal line and you're like, what the fuck is going on? And it just works. And I think the guitars sound great. The bass is, solid. Pappas's drums are just dirty. I love listening to him play drums.
Mm-hmm.
So
there's some pop in this record and What It Is to Burn and Pappas's drums that is kind of Finch. It fits them. And I love it. But yeah, damn.
Here's something to leave you guys with. This is my final thoughts. Outside of the fact that I love this record, all-time album, I will ride for this till the day I die. Listen to 3 simple words when Nate opens up with "Open up my eyes, flooded with daylight." Sounds like Billy Joe from Green Day. Next time you listen to it, you will not be able to unhear it. Guaranteed.
Oh, I think you're right. God, I'm playing it in my head right now, and I think you're right. Holy shit. Yeah.
I was just doing the same thing. Shit.
Yeah. You just ruined that record for me.
Well, this one just went to the shitter, boys. Let's call it a night.
My mic drop is Ride or Die, What It Is to Burn.
Yeah. Same. I agree completely. Same. One of the best records that has come across my life is What It Is to Burn, and I will continue to spin it that way.
I completely agree. If Nate, Randy, Alex, Pappas, any of them hear this, you guys definitely help change my mind about music. And if I get the chance to ever share the stage with you guys, I'm gonna fucking try my damnedest to outdo you. And I know I never will, but I'm 40-year-old fucking old bitch now. I will give it a shot. And I hope that they come back with some more stuff. I've seen rumors, but I hope they decide that they've got some more left in the tank and they bring us some more friggin' chaos, because I'll fucking burn any day with these boys, especially that album.
Hell yeah, dude. Perfect. Mic drop. We are done. We appreciate you listening to Audio Slave. All that shit's coming here in the back end. Sean, thanks for coming back, man. We appreciate it.
Perfect guy for the job. And you did class it up tonight.
Yeah, I tried.
Above and beyond my wine. You fucking classed it, baby.
The Jaguars jerseys did it for you?
Hey, baby. They won in London today, baby.
They beat the Bills. Hey, I'm fine with that.
My custom-made Audio Slave jersey,
There you go.
So I had this pinned to my jersey,
Yeah, for those of you that are, I know this is not a visual medium. We do have the video, and there might be a piece of this, but Sean is wearing a Jacksonville Jaguars jersey, but with a Audio Slave cutout right over the front there, so that he has his own Audio Slave jersey, which maybe we'll make those someday.
Limited eBay 1 of 1.
One of one.
Well, it's gonna be number 32 Maurice Jones-Drew Audio Slave podcast jersey. There you go.
MJD.
It's true. Yeah.
I forgot about MJD.
Baby.
Yeah. We could go off on the Jags right now. I mean, Fred Taylor, all time, right?
Great. It's great. I still think Brunel got the shaft, but that's.
Who else are we going to talk about? Peyton Hillis and Jamal Charles now, or what?
We could. Those are different teams, though.
Oh, I know that. I'm talking fantasy studs of
fantasy
previous
studs.
day,
Yeah.
my friend.
Yes. Priest Holmes.
Priest Holmes.
MJG.
All right. On that note, peace, podheads.
See you next week. We're out.
Thank you for listening to Podio Slave. We are at Podio Slave on Twitter, Instagram, TikTok, all of the places that you can find us on social media. Facebook, Podio Slave Podcast. YouTube, Podio Slave Podcast there. Email us at podioslavepodcast@gmail.com. And hey, if you want to become a supporter, click on the link at the bottom of the episode and give us $1, give us $5. It keeps the lights on, keeps us going. We really appreciate that stuff. Thank you. All right, we ready?
Yeah.
Yes, let's go.
All right.
Say that for the end.
Yeah, that'll work.